So today we're talking about taking photos of the deer during the rutting season. Currently we're in the middle of October, which is the red deer rutting season. Their rutting season will start from the end of September and last all the way through to November. There are 5 species of deer which can be found throughout the UK, and the 5 different species will have different times of year that they'll rut. I'll put these on screen now should you want to visit any of the other deer species. Now, prior to the rutting season, the red deer will develop rather large antlers. Early on in the year, you'll see these antlers as being very fluffy or velvety. This velvet is full of blood vessels and will be helping the antlers to grow. The velvet will shed about a month prior to the rutting season in a process known as velveting. This looks quite disturbing, but it's also really cool to see, and it reveals the antlers below. Now, during the rutting season, stags are going to be absolutely full of testosterone, which means that they can be a lot more aggressive towards you, so please always make sure you're keeping your distance. That testosterone is going to be leading their behaviour for the next month or so, and they'll be fighting each other, and this is the behaviour that we're trying to capture during the rutting season. Now, the other aspect in terms of time is the time of day. The best time of day to see the deer is during the morning or the late hours of the evening. If you go out looking for the deer during the middle of the day, you might still see them, but they're less likely to be active as they're avoiding that midday sun. Now, the other benefit of coming at the start or the end of the day is you're not getting this very harsh midday sun. You'll see just how much shadows it's creating, which can be quite dramatic and kind of cool. However, it absolutely destroys all the shadows this way. Or you get this very harsh backlighting, in which case you're only really getting silhouettes, or it'll completely wash out your photo. Now, although deer can be seen throughout the UK, often the best place to see them is in deer parks such as this. This is Woburn Abbey. And if you're struggling at all, you've just got to listen out. During the rutting season, the red deer will be absolutely bellowing. This is a really loud noise that they're trying to use to attract the females, but they're also going to be using this noise to try and show their size to ward off other males. Now, if you're visiting any one of these public parks, such as Richmond Park or Woburn Abbey, always make sure that you're staying along these footpaths. This is not just for your safety, but it's also for the deers as well. In public places like this, I find that deers get very used to where the paths are. They understand that people will generally stay on them, and their behaviour will be completely different if you are on the path versus if you are off them. You'll see that the deer get often very nervous when they see people wandering off the paths, either becoming aggressive, which is very dangerous towards people and does lead to people getting hurt, or they will just run. And then you're not going to see them anyway. So make sure you're staying on the path and you'll get a really great view. Also, within these parks, there are a number of ponds as well, which often I find are a really good spot. This is because you can stand behind them and the deer may sometimes be on the other side. Not only are you going to be nice and safe being on the other side of the pond, but you'll potentially get lovely reflections as well, which I think is a really awesome shot to get. We'll talk a little bit more about the different shots that you can get slightly later in the video. In terms of gear, I'm using the Sony 200-600 today, and it's the 600mm aspect of this lens that's very important for shooting deer like this. You want to be able to keep your distance, and having a long focal length is going to allow you to do that. If I spin the camera around, you'll see that I'm currently filming a seeker deer, and there's quite a large distance between me and it, so allowing me to keep the deer safe and myself safe as well. On this camera, which is the Sony a7 III, I'm able to film in APS-C mode. What APS-C mode is doing, it's cropping in about 1.5 times, giving me an effective focal length of 900mm. That gives me an even further reach, so I can stay even further away from the deer while still filling my frame. If I was to take photos as well, APS-C mode still gives me a reasonable resolution of about 13 megapixels, which is more than enough for social media, and that's more than enough for me in this situation. The full frame nature of this camera as well means that in low light situations like the morning and the evening when the deer are most active, as we said before, means that I'm going to get a less noisy image, which is really beneficial in these situations. If you're a little bit unsure about what focal length or sensor size is, then I will put a playlist at the end of this video that explains these terms in more detail. So as we start to get toward the end of the day, we get that wonderful evening glow, and it's also broken up even more by these trees. I've been joined by a stag just beyond these trees, who's actually sitting really nicely in line, and this wonderful soft light is making it beautifully backlit. I'm at 500mm filming on APS-C, so about 750mm. Filling the frame with the stag. We're getting that cold sort of misty breath as well, which is beautiful to see. Just such a pleasure. It'd be really nice if he stands up. I was filming a little bit earlier and walking towards me, which I'll throw in a few clips now. I was trying to get this same sort of composition, but just couldn't get everything set up in time. So a little bit of filming I've got, but not many photos of that. But really nice to see, rather beautiful. What I was trying to do as well with that standing composition was I was further back and I was trying to use this initial tree to try and frame the deer. I got a few shots early in the morning at that same sort of composition, which I'll show you as well. And I've taken just probably 20-30 steps just to the right. So I'm now at the side of the deer and the sun is no longer directly in line with me and the deer. It's just to quickly show you the difference between taking a few steps left to right and how significantly different that can make your images. So really worth just exploring these different angles and playing around with different things. The light's getting really nice now. It's near the end of the day, so I'm going to try and shoot some silhouettes, try and capture that golden hour. So I haven't managed to capture any of the deer rutting today. However, this is where I shot it last year. I had a deer the other side of this balancing pond and I'm down here on the footpath. You can see just how close, even with the iPhone, I'm able to get this deer. So with a 600mm lens, I was able to capture this image. So that brings us to the end of a rather fantastic day. I really hope you've enjoyed this video. If you'd like to learn more photography tips, press on this playlist right here, and I'll catch you at the next one.